Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be covering if the Mutadons from Jurassic World Rebirth can survive Hateg Island. Now, this will be the first ever fictional creature I'll cover on this channel, with it not being really the original planned one I wanted to do for this video. But this is going to be a fun detour in the meantime. And, as most of you already know, we'll be covering 4 main categories, 5 unless you include the overview, with the final category being speckle evolution. But before we fully drop these guys into their brand new ecosystem that they have to compete in, let's go over their origin and their stats to see what we're dealing with and to get a basic overview of what we're learning here. So let's move on to that. Mutadons are genetically modified dinosaurs made by InGen approximately 17 years ago, way before Jurassic World fully came to operation. They approximately stand around 1.8 to 2.1 meters tall, with their length being over 4.8 meters long, and with an approximate wingspan of 9.1 meters long as well. And they approximately weigh around 250 kilograms, which is as heavy as an adult African lion. Mutadons seem to be somewhat intelligent, due to 2 of them being able to deduce that the survivors went down into the tunnels, and with 1 of them going down into the solar system and trying to sneak up upon them. But there are times when their intelligence is, well, more a lack of word, they just use brute force. And their intelligence is more somewhat akin to some common birds. But they've also shown the capacity to somewhat dig in one of their scenes when they were coming through the roof. And unlike most hybrids, they can actually reproduce. And don't even ask me how they reproduce. It's generally a mystery to me, too. Mutadons are also not the largest thing in their environment, with them being only around the size of a mid-sized predator, and along with them sharing an ecosystem with multiple different top apex predators from different eras of Earth's history, make up the entirety of the food chain on the island. And with the Mutadon's size in account, it is somewhat possible that the Mutadons take up somewhat of a scavenging role. Due to their ability of flight, they could possibly spot corpses miles away before any predator could. That, and they could aim for much more smaller, mid-sized predators close to their range. So they could aim for juveniles or other mid-sized dinosaurs. That would be perfect for their unique way of hunting. Now, since we got everything that we know about them established, let's see how they do in this brand new environment that we're going to place them in. The environment the Mutadons lived in was covered in multiple rocky formations and steep vertical cliffs. These places could be used to help them give a better vantage points or help them take off. However, the environment of Hateg Island is vastly and completely different. Instead of large sloping rock faces and high vertical cliffs, Hateg Island gives way to large river waves, swamps, and some savanna, which is drastically way more different from their original home. However, the average temperature of the island is around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. This would be very favorable for the Mutadons in climate. However, what they would probably struggle with the most is the new terrain of Hateg Island, primarily the swamps and jungles in the island's foliage. This will make it somewhat difficult for them to take off in some areas, which would impede their hunting habits. However, they would get easier times taking off in the savanna regions due to the wide open areas and lack of obstacles in the way. Though it would be still somewhat difficult due to the fact that there's not a lot of high vertical terrain in those areas. However, they would do pretty well and they would manage. So overall, they do pretty well in the environment section, with only just a minor and few hiccups. Now, let's see if it's the same with food. Now, we don't exactly know what type of prey items the Mutadons exactly hunted on St. Hubert, but we do know, based on context clues and in the film, they are capable of taking down mid-sized prey items. And automatically, this means almost every animal on Hateg Island is an immediate viable prey option to them, which means more of this. Ultimately, Hateg Island is a variable buffet for the Mutadons. Nothing here is truly large enough to fend them off, save for a single apex predator, which we'll get later into competition. But now, what animals would the Mutadons majorly hunt all the time? Well, immediately excluding the smaller ones, this narrows it down to, well, a couple to the biggest, largest creatures on the dwarf island, which is Alamosaurus, Ratodon, Polytitan, and Gigarromosaurus. I absolutely butchered some of those names, but we have to get through this anyhow. Of course, the other animals would still be a viable prey menu on them, but the smaller ones would be relatively safe due to their smaller size and due to them being really harder to get for the larger Mutadons. So the after ones mentioned will be the perfect ideal prey that Mutadons would hunt almost every day, due to all of them being in the perfect size range for the Mutadons to hunt. The Mutadons clear the food section with relative and fast ease. But let's see if the competition can hold up to these mutated invaders. Mutadons had a very large list of competition back on St. Hubert, but here on Hateg Island, they would be the largest predators around, due to the fact that there aren't really that many large apex predators around, save for except one. But besides that one, nothing can generally oppose them. However, that doesn't mean that they would still not be a problem for the Mutadons. The smaller predators of the island, such as the Balor and the crocodiles and many others, would cause problems for the young, who they may occasionally target for quick snacks or hunt if they don't get enough food. But if the Mutadon's protection system is similar to, well, their base donors, the JP Raptors, they would absolutely be territorial with their eggs and young, meaning they will be willing to track down any aggressor that came towards their nest. And so any small-sized predator would be a snack for the young and for them. Now, the one true creature that could truly pose a threat to the Mutadon is the creature that the islands are therefore named after, which is the Hateg. Now, how would a confrontation between these two go down? Well, like this. Okay, but all jokes aside, and scarring JP Raptor fans again, this would probably be a major win con for the Mutadons for the majority of the time if it was an ambush. But how would it happen if they just randomly encountered each other head to head? No ambush, no prep time. Well, if we look at their stats side by side, they are relatively even, including in the weight category, alongside of Hateg being, well, taller. What it ultimately does come down to is who can outmaneuver their opponent better. And it may be safe to say that the Mutadons may take this round. Due to their theropod built structure, they could possibly outmaneuver the Hateg when it's on land, possibly flanking its sides that are vulnerable, and possibly pouncing on its back when it's given the chance. However, Hateg have a very long beak that's also very pointy. If there was a well-directed blow onto a Mutadon's vital limb or their head, it could be an instant KO for the Mutadon, making the Hateg the winner. Either way, both opponents need to avoid each other, especially the Mutadons with the Hateg beak. They would be wary of it and try to avoid it at all costs during a fight. If not, they'll probably back down if they know they can't win. Overall, the Mutadons do exceedingly well in the Hateg Island formation. Despite with some minor pushback from their apex predator, they would generally go uncontested, though without a little struggle here and there. But let's speculate on what niches they can take up and see where they can succeed even more at. On to the Spec Evo section. Dracoaurus, dragonbeak lizard. As a result of environmental pressure and competitive pressure from Hateg, some Mutadon descendants became larger and much more powerful. This resulted in Dracoaurus. Dracoaurus stands around 4.8 meters tall with a length of 4 meters and a wingspan of 12 to 14 meters long. This overall makes them the largest descendants of the Mutadons to date. Dracoaurus has a shorter body, longer neck, and a way more robust head, along with a way more prominent recurved beak. This thick, robust skull allows them to exert way more bone-crunching bites, along with 2 front thick claws facing frontward. With these features, they are able to hunt down practically everything down on Hateg's island, including its sauropods. And unlike their competition, Hateg, they hunt a little more uniquely. With smaller prey items, they come from the sky swooping down, using their large 2 front-facing claws and slamming down their body weight on the smaller prey item or individual, before using its large beak to crunch around the neck or rip off the head. With sauropods, it's more of a ground pursuit chase. Using their heavy beak and teeth, along with their front-facing claws, they can cause massive injury to the sauropod and go around and crunch its neck as well. This makes them one of the few animals on the island that can hunt them. They also tend to be quite territorial, even when it comes down to their kills. This makes them very dangerous overall, making most creatures of the island very wary of them. And during around mating season, male Dracoaurus will make loud booming calls to any nearby females. If a male does find a female, they'll have to present her with a gift to show that they are capable of hunting and also relatively fit and healthy. If the female finds it suitable, they become a bonded pair. Now, once 2 are bonded, they'll go on hunts together and also coordinate to take on much harder to bring down prey, such as the island sauropods, making them one of the most deadliest duo on the islands. They also get even more dangerous when the female starts to lay eggs. The bonded pair will get more aggressive and more territorial to outsiders. This makes them very protective parents, but also very more dangerous when they have chicks around or are about to hatch. It's quite due to this protective nature, the chicks actually make it to adulthood way more often than most animals. Due to the fact that they're territorial and due to the fact that most chicks make it to adulthood, they're able to expand past the island and also relatively settle in newer areas, making them one of the more deadlier and effective Mutadon descendants yet. Alamosaurus, winged mole lizard. Instead of competing with Hateg, some Mutadons use their semi-digging abilities to get the much more smaller creatures of the undergrowth out. As a result, they became more smaller and nimble. All these attributes accumulated in Alamosaurus, standing around 0.59 meters tall and 1 meter in length with a wingspan of 3 meters. Alamosaurus has short arms with thick claws, and they are much more pudgy on the neck and head with shorter tails, while also being covered in brown, stiff feathers. With these adaptations, this allows them to be better diggers than their ancestors, but also allowed them to avoid danger from much more dangerous kin and other predators of the island. As a result of this digging, Alamosauruses live in very complex burrows that can fit up to 5 to 10 members in a family unit. Due to this family structure, this allows them to co-raise chicks with other family members. And this also frees up other members of the unit to go hunting or scavenging for food. And when some chicks reach a certain point of maturity, they'll end up venturing out of their original home burrow in order to find and start a new one. And oftentimes, they'll reconnect with their original home burrow in order to help coordinate with hunts even better. Alamosauruses cannot take off from the ground. Instead, they need to climb trees in order to get a better vantage point to see where food would be, but also to help them get off better off the ground. However, that does not mean that there are not less dangers up in the trees. Oftentimes, they run into competition from another close relative, which we will get more into later. Alamosaurus primarily hunt at night, in order to reduce their chances of interacting with competition, but also to get a better chance at taking on prey animals that do not know that they are in the trees waiting. When an Alamosaurus finds an opportune individual to take down, Alamosaurus will communicate with their immediate members in the area via clicks and loud chirps, in order to signal where the prey is and where it's located at, along where to strike it at. For once the prey hears this loud cacophony of noises, it's already too late for them, making it a pretty horrifying sound to hear during your last stroll on this island. Due to this made them pretty successful overall in the Hateg Island chain. Gigarromosaurus, giant mouth sea lizard. Instead of competing on land, some descendants of the Mutadons ended up venturing forth to the sea. Due to the lack of competition in this area, as a result, their bodies became much more specialized for aquatic life, along with their pseudobeaks getting longer and much more broad and wide, and more specialized for aquatic lifestyle. Due to these changes, they slowly became Gigarromosaurus. Now, Gigarromosaurus stands around 3.1 meters tall while having a length of 5.1 meters long, and their wingspan approximately being 9.2 meters long, making them a bit more larger than their ancestors. This also makes them the second largest descendant of the Mutadon clade ever. As a result of Gigarromosaurus' lifestyle, they had developed thick tusk-like protrusions along their beak, which allows them to clamp onto way more tough-scaled fish and hold them securely in their mouths. Also, with their beak being pointed, they can break the water tension way more easier and dive in to catch the fish. And they also use their beaks for communication with other members of their kind, along with territorial bouts. These territorial bouts are called clack-offs. Now, clack-offs are initiated when two Gigarromosauruses violently clatter their beaks together in order to ward each other off from each other's territory. Where clack is the loudest, wins. Clack-offs are also used to impress females as well around mating season. And once the male and female get together, they'll only stay around to raise the chicks. Once the chicks reach a viable age to leave the nest, they split ways and repeat the process again and again. Due to this lifestyle, the population spread out and grew, spreading out more all across the parts of the Cretaceous globe, turning into many different varieties of subspecies, making them one of the most diverse and successful descendants of the Mutadons up to date. Terraptor, crested dragon lizard. As a result of rising competition, some Mutadons began to specialize more in their trademark niche of drop ambush tactics from the sky. As a result, they ended up getting smaller, more streamlined, and much more durable, becoming Terraptor, standing over 0.75 meters tall with a length of 1 meter and a wingspan of 3 meters. Terraptor's body is more aerodynamic, being more similar to modern-day hawks, along with their pseudobeak, which slowly changed over time to become more sharper and larger, similar to hawks of modern day. With these beaks, they're able to strip away more flesh from the prey, and also evolved hawk-like structured feet in order to help pin it down as they are ripping and tearing up the prey, or to take it up in the air to save it for later. Terraptors hunt a variety of prey such as Alamosaurus, juvenile Alamosaurus, Balar, and even adult Rabidon, even take down adult Alamosaurus, though these are often rare and can only happen when they form mobs. But these mobs will only form when Terraptors spot a wounded or sick individual. And, over time, more and more of them will gather around this individual and proceed to jump it or just kill it while it's still lying on its last dying breaths. Most times when they're eating, they tend to get into territorial squabbles with each other over the food, or in order to see who will get to eat first. Meanwhile, Terra mating habits are pretty similar to hawks, same with territorial disputes with one another. But also, male Terraptors will also perform loud booming calls in order to attract a female and also to impress them, which then leads into the death spiral. All these factors go well, then they'll become a bonded pair for life. And once the pair have chicks, they'll be interchanging roles. One of them will be watching the chicks, while the other will be going out hunting for the family and providing. They'll also change up their hunting strategy. This includes changing the prey they hunt, primarily smaller and weaker creatures, ordered not to get injured, which can seriously harm their chances for their chicks, mates, and their survival. However, Terraptors have to face competition while up in their home side of the trees, from their very close relative, the Alamosaurus. And for these two relatives, they have a generational hatred for each other, not for no reason either. For when an Alamosaurus climbs up the trees, most of the time they tend to stumble upon Terraptor's nests, and they will often eat the eggs for nutrients, but also to eliminate future competition for the prey they hunt. In order to prevent this, Chris Terraptors will often target Alamosauruses up in trees to knock them out of them, but also target them on the ground in order to make sure there's no future threat that risks their offspring's lives. You can get a pretty vicious rivalry. And due to these traits, Chris Terraptor was able to diversify into a small variety of different subspecies in the late Cretaceous scene. Some of these subspecies diversified, changing in dietary needs, and also changing into niche roles, alongside with unique crest variations, with being smaller in some areas. Overall, the Mutadon lineage became quite successful, becoming dominant in several different niches. If they had more time, they could have diversified a lot more further, but sadly, time was not on their side, for something completely and utterly out of their control ended their reign and the reign of the dinosaurs. It's almost sad to see a legacy end before it had a true chance to rise into greatness. But some great legacies usually have a survivor, someone to tell their story and keep it going. And who is to say that the Mutadon legacy just ended here with the dinosaurs? What if there's a possibility? Just like the avian dinosaurs, some probably rose up from the ashes of their ancestors and emerged to become something completely new. Thank you everyone for watching a video again. Sorry it took so long to produce this one. I was busy dealing with other life problems and other stuff along with school, and also me being lazy as hell. But anyhow, special thanks to my friends EcoSwap, Noah Red, and Shady Garrett, along with Greenclaw. But this also includes 3 new artists on the team, such as Lego Monsterverse Rex, CNES, and Arctilus. Thanks to these 3, they were able to help bring these creatures into life, which I'm eternally grateful for. Speaking of which, I also had some new special help from 2 special people, such as Mr. Jeff and Mapu Art. Again, if it weren't for them, multiple of these scenes would not have been brought to life, along with this video taking a bit more longer. But if you're interested in seeing more of Mr. Jeff's art along with Mapu's art, then go click their Twitter bios down in the description below, or join Jeff's Discord server. Also, speaking of which, I also do have a Discord server too. I just keep forgetting to mention it. But anyhow, I'm hoping I can do better with my timetable management so I can get the next video done a bit more faster. And it won't be Speculative Evolution related. Anyhow, see you guys next time. But you guys already know me too well, so I'll leave you with another sneak peek again.